A lot of great things. Taking the next step, that's what it's all about.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Crimson Dynasty. So excited to be with y'all today. Gonna go ahead and state the obvious. We're missing one of the most important people on the show. And she's not here because I don't actually know why she's not here, but she's not here tonight. So we have some guests filling in for us tonight. She'll be back next week. I miss her. I love it. I don't know if y'all saw the show last week. If you did, let me know in the comments. But C'Chi and I think, did a pretty good job. A female-only show. I think it was the first ever for the Bama Standard Network, a female-only show. It was very fun. But glad Dan's back with us, and you're going to notice some two studs, I guess, to my left or my right. I guess my right if you're watching that way. But I'm going to let Dan introduce them. But super excited for this episode tonight. We have a lot in store for y'all. But before we get started, I want to go ahead and shout out our sponsor, Workspace Solutions, one of the many sponsors on the show. So thankful for them. If you have any online presence needs, marketing, social media, whatever, contact them. They do an amazing job. And we're so thankful for their support and loyalty to not only the Bama Standard, but the Crimson Dynasty. So once again, super excited for the show tonight. A lot in store. We're going to be talking football. We're going to be talking basketball. We're going to be talking softball, baseball, all of it. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my amazing co-host, Dan. You know him as Final Whistle Dan. Super excited for him to get to introduce his two guys. But first off, hope you had a good 4th, Dan. We missed you last week.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, unfortunately, I couldn't be there. Work got in the way. But you're Roll Tide, everyone. Tonight we have an action-packed show. And it is my pleasure to introduce, two of my not only co-hosts of the Final Whistle, but two of my best friends in the world. We got the Lucian Graves, our Final Whistle analyst, and our resident Debo. And ladies and gentlemen, we have the legendary, banned from the strip multiple times, Daniel Petty. How you guys doing tonight?
Glad to be here with y'all, man. Y'all did so good, Hannah, that they said it took two of us from the Final Whistle to make up for C'Chi. So that's why it took me and Lou we're here to step up.
And they sent the two that do the heavy lifting, so you already know. Big shoes to fill.
That's right.
That's right. Well, we're super glad y'all are here tonight. And, one thing that we struggle with on the show is having enough time to talk. So I'm going to go ahead and start with our first topic because, it's going to be a very, I think, important conversation that we're going to be having over the next couple of weeks in particular because, when we look at how much has changed, I think, the first thing to start with is really Kalen DeBoer and the job he's done. Him and his coaching staff, not only keeping recruits and keeping commits, but getting new ones. And I am super impressed with the job he's done, considering people wondered if the man was going to even be able to recruit. But I want to kind of dive deep into what we could see on the field this year. We've lost a couple of players, like I always like to say, good riddance to them, but we've gained even better ones. So let's kind of, if y'all are down for it, let's kind of talk about each position. And we don't have to talk about each individual one, but like the offensive line, you can talk about the quarterback, running back. Let's start with the quarterback. I think that's kind of going to be the most obvious conversation I know who we're going to talk about, but let's start with you, Dan. Quarterback, right now, kind of got two guys. Obviously, Jalen Milroe is the front runner, but Ty Simpson. Talk about what you're looking for this year, what you're excited to see, and who you think is going to take the realm.
Okay. No doubt, Jalen Milroe is quarterback one. Sure. Coach DeBoer, he made that clear, and he's the leader of our team. Jalen, right. We're going to go as far as Jalen takes us. What I want to see from Jalen, is his progression, in the passing game. I want to see what he can do in this potent offense that Coach DeBoer has been known to run.
Sure. Yeah. And Dan, before I move on to Lou, I want to ask this. We talked about this a little bit, C'Chi and I did on last week's episode, of how important it was for Kalen DeBoer to pour into Jalen Milroe and let the team know that he has bought into him as well. Because I think you look at guys on both sides of the ball and how important they are, like they're glue, right? They're kind of glued to this team. Having a guy like Jalen Milroe who is vocal and staying, who, struggled off and on last year, but really won the team over. How important was it for a guy like Kalen DeBoer to come in and take over a program, but really show his team that, hey, unlike last season, we had some questions about quarterback. Jalen Milroe's our guy. How important is it for the team? But also, the guys coming in to know that question's already been answered.
Okay. The biggest, my thing is the biggest relationship in sports.
Sure.
In sports, in all the sports, is the relationship between the head football coach and the quarterback.
Sure.
And for him to get out front of this, not dragged into the season, we're battling, the establish that Jalen Milroe is our guy. That should instill confidence in Jalen Milroe because the team is already behind him.
That's right.
So that's huge. And Caleb DeBoer knows what he do. He knows how to motivate a quarterback and move a quarterback. And so I his approach is different from Coach Saban. Coach Saban is all about competition. It's always about competition with him.
Sure.
Coach DeBoer, he's a, hey, this is our guy. This is who we're gonna ride. We're gonna go as far as Jalen Milroe would take us. So I think that's very important. Maybe we'll see how that works out for Jalen.
Sure, absolutely. And Lushan, let's start with you on this next question. Obviously, quarterback's kind of the known position that we kind of have some, I guess, comfort in. But, let's talk about wide receivers, right? I mean, Alabama's kind of been known for the past couple of seasons as being wide receiver university. Had plenty of great guys come in this program. Isaiah Bond left. And, some guys have potential to really make a name for themselves and put Alabama back on the map as winning national championships. So who are you looking forward to most? Guys that are returning, but also some younger guys who have an opportunity to really step up and help the Tide this year.
I've rode with this one guy since he signed on the dotted line in December. And if y'all watch me, y'all already know who I'm about to say, and that's Kendrick Law. Sure. Kendrick Law is in a prime position to go off this year. And he brought his teammate, I'm pretty sure one of his best friends, in Kobe Prentice. And this offense is going to be exciting. And you know what? Caleb DeBoer brought us a gem in Jeremy Bernard. I'm telling you, those three, I'm looking for big-time production, big physical catches.
Sure.
I like their upper-class mentality. Plus they all have this – they all play with a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah.
All throughout the game. They block, they do the nasty, and they get down and dirty. And they're going to get it done. So that's what I'm looking for.
All right, Petty, what about you?
As far as receivers go, on top of what Lou said, is the depth behind it, and I'm interested to see how the rotation is going to work because there's so much young talent in that room too.
Exactly.
With Caleb Odom, who showed, I mean, he's got college size, SEC size from day one, so he's gonna figure into the mix. And we all know the new mayor of Tuscaloosa, Ryan Williams, is got talent crawling out of his ears. That kid is going to find playing time, but where does he find it? With, like you said, you got Bernard, you got Law, you got Prentice. I mean, he got Emmanuel Henderson. Rico Scott. A lot of people like what that kid's showing some flashes. Yeah. So there's just so much depth right there. I'm excited to see how the receiver rotation plays out because that's the thing. Milroe, if he relaxes and plays within this system, his weapons this year are, I think, even another step up.
And I want to go over something you mentioned because it's actually perfect. It was my next question anyway. Is a guy like Ryan Williams, right, with the transfer portal being so prominent and, being so appealing to younger players who aren't getting playing time. I mean, Ryan Williams, with the history he had with the whole recruiting, committing to Alabama, then maybe not, then committing to Alabama, how much playing time is going to be enough? What do you think Kalen DeBoer is saying to him expectation-wise? Because you don't want to lose a guy like Ryan Williams to the portal who may be frustrated, because let's just be honest, years ago, we wouldn't even be having this conversation because Nick Saban very rarely played true freshmen, right? It was mostly based on, your how long you've been there. You've waited your turn. I mean, Mac Jones, was an epitome of that, of even that process later on in Nick Saban's career. But a guy like Ryan Williams, who really any team would take him in a heartbeat, wants him. What is it going to take when you look at, you have Emmanuel Henderson, you have Kendrick Law, you have Kobe Prentice, you have Cole Adams, you have all these other players in the mix. What is that going to mean for a guy like Ryan Williams? And, what are we kind of looking at, Dan? Maybe they're going to go around all of y'all, but that was my next question. What exactly is it going to take to keep Ryan Williams happy, I guess is my question. You're muted.
Ryan Williams is happy anyway. He has such an eccentric personality. Ryan Williams probably won't have to pay for anything in Tuscaloosa the rest of his life.
Sure.
So Ryan Williams, Coach Shepard has established that taker mentality, which I love about his wide receiver room. And we mentioned all those guys, and and we didn't mention one that we were kind of assuming was going to be wide receiver one. That's Jalen Hale, who's going to be out most of the season, not the entire season.
Yeah.
So I mean,
we can't mention he's not playing.
Still an overflow of talent. So Ryan Williams, he's probably, I would say, probably the best receiver to come out of Alabama since Julio Jones. So you're going to find a way to get this guy on the field and get him some touch. He's just too big of a leader already. And a playmaker with the ball in hand, you're gonna find a way to get him ball in hand. There's no question about that. So you're gonna find a way to get Ryan Williams the ball.
You make a good point. I mean, even Amari Cooper and Julio Jones both waited their time to shine, and it paid off. Lushawn, let's talk about the offensive line, right? I mean, if we're being honest, one of the biggest issues up front was definitely our center, right? Not having a guy who could effectively snap the ball. And, I haven't seen a ball snapped out low since, really with Jason Kelce having to snap it low for Jalen Hurts, because that's how he likes it, right? But when you're Jalen Milroe, who has negative 5 seconds to do something with the ball before he's sacked, let's go over the offensive line. Obviously, Parker Brailsford going to be our new center, but who are some other guys you're looking forward to, Lord willing, having a safe pocket for our quarterback, regardless if it's Jalen or even Ty Simpson, for us to have a more effective offense?
I'm not looking for it. It's already there. And I talked to the man himself who's going to anchor it, and that's Mr. Jaeden Hulkster Roberts. He and Tyler Booker have established an attitude, and it's spread like wildfire in this offensive lineman room. We don't just have 5 starters. I'm going to say we might have 7 to 8 dudes that are going to play throughout this season, because it's going to be a rough season. People are going to get banged up, and the fact that we're having multiple guys practice at multiple positions just is going to make us better when it comes down to the later games in the season, especially in this 12-team playoff. We're going to have to play more football than we ever have before. So I'm looking to see the newly refurbished Proctor.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to seeing Wilkin Formby.
That's one.
And I want to see what 1 or 2 of these transfers, if they can actually come in and break this rotation, or are we just going to watch C'Chi Payne and what's the other guy's name, Dan?
Joseph Ionata, William Sanders.
Yeah, Joseph Ionata and William Sanders take it. Because I'm going to tell you what, if these transfers don't get on their P's and Q's, I just named 3 of them, and they're coming, and they're mean.
Sure.
And then I don't even want to talk about what we got coming next year. That's just our pocket gonna be good, Bama Nation, for a while. So we're in good hands.
Petty, I want to ask you the same question. Also adding to it, like he said, injuries. Whether it's going to be wear and tear, whatever it's going to be, this is going to be a hard season, no doubt about it. I mean, a lot's changing. I mean, I'm going to tell you as an Alabama fan my entire life and being an old soul, and like your tradition, I'm not necessarily happy that we don't play some of the same teams we get to play every year, especially like Ole Miss and Tennessee. But, you have to roll with the punches. But before we move on to another position, I want to get your thoughts on the O-line, and even with the lack of depth either at tackle, I mean, how is that going to affect Alabama this year?
Well, I don't know. I expect, if you're looking for a breakthrough player at that position that adds depth, and not just depth, that may end up being a starter a few games in, is hometown boy Wilkin Formby. You know, he came in kind of baby faced, and he already kind of within a year or two has that hardened SEC look about him. And you know, hey, Booker, I think Booker and Roberts are going to have Jaeden. They're going to have All-American type seasons. I think they're the given, but I really expect Formby to be that kind of household name that steps on this line. That's the new guy at tackle for Alabama this year.
And before we move on, two more positions on offense, we'll move on to defense. But one of the positions I think that, if we're being honest, if there was one micro criticism about Nick Saban's career at Alabama, it was, I feel like, especially, you know, I'll just say this. I think O.J. Howard is going to go down in history as one of Alabama's most underrated and underutilized players ever. Nick Saban did not do a great job, especially when he was there, utilizing him correctly, right? We've seen teams that utilize tight ends correctly, how beneficial and how productive and successful they are. So when you look at the fact that now we have 5 tight ends this year, how much Dan, we'll start with you. How crucial could this be for Alabama's offensive success, especially when you look at, I mean, I'll be honest with you, one of the things I think we should have done better last year is quick slants, quick out routes, quick slants. Making progress, even 2, 3, 4 yards is better than going back 15 yards. So how crucial is it for tight ends for us to have that many, but also who are you expecting to see? I mean, obviously you have CJ, but, you know, when you look at some of the even 3rd, 4th, 5th string, how they can also have an impact this year.
Well, you know, with the tight end position, with the weapons we have on the outside, you know, I think, you know, tight end should, you know, main priority should be blocking, you know, blocking on the perimeters. We have guys we can get the ball. You know, CJ Dupree, great receiving tight end. You know what I'm saying? You know, he's an outlet, but hey, you got Ryan Wiz on one side, you got Jeremy Bernard, you got weapons. You want to get the ball. So, you know, the tight end position in this offense probably be utilized more. But one thing I wanted to mention, you know, O.J. Howard was just the second most underutilized player in the Saban era. Number 1 was Julio Jones. You imagine, you know.
Yeah.
100%.
We didn't utilize Julio. But, you know, it's time come. We'll see with the offense. I think this offense tends to utilize the tight end position a little more. So we'll see. It's still to be determined.
Petty, going to you next. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was kind of just touching on the OJ. What's ironic is that was the Kiffin era, but it was also at a time where Derrick Henry was getting 40 carries a night, and it was just. And Julio played in a completely different offense. This offense, man, in Lou, as much as anybody is my film guru guy, they spread the ball around, man. It's all about progression, and that's really, you know, you want to talk about Milroe. You want to see the biggest growth in him. Can he go to 2, 3, and even 4 progressions, because they're throwing it out of the backfield to the running backs, and the tight end is a great outlet in this offense, and Dupree has shown that he can be a weapon. And again, man, it's just this offense has such potential to be so explosive, and the tight end's always look, man, if you utilize the tight end, it's the old adage, it's the most dangerous position on the offense if you utilize it the right way, because it's the most uncovered position on the offense. It gets it's where you can create some mismatches. So I expect to see that this year.
Sure. And very quickly, if we move on to defense, running backs, name a guy you're excited to watch and maybe even be younger. I mean, let's just be honest. I'm very happy we have this much depth in running back. You know, I think that's kind of going to play a huge part into our success this year. But, you know, which one of the 5, I mean, probably going to go with the most obvious, but which one of y'all just popcorn it? Which one of y'all most excited to watch this year?
Definitely Justus Haynes. You know, the little snapshot we got of him in the college football playoffs, you know, it was awesome. It was awesome to see. You know, we stopped utilizing them.
Sure.
But, you know, I would like to see what he do with a little extra workload.
Sure. All right, Petty.
Haynes has got to be your answer. But if we're going to say one after the spring game, Richard Young, he was, man, that dude, he popped off the screen at A-Day.
Sure. All right, Lushawn.
You know, I'm going to take Jam.
I was going to say, is someone going to take you?
He plays with that just destructive.
Yep.
Josh Jacobs, I'm just going to either run. If I can't juke you, I'm running through you, and then I'm scoring a touchdown. He's got home run speed just as much as the other two, and he's got wiggle. We're a three-headed dragon in our backfield, and people are going to find that out. You might be worried about the pass, but don't be surprised if we have two running backs with, close to 1,000 yards, or all three are above about 660.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because we're going to run the ball. Well, we got some bruisers up front. I mean, like I just said earlier, Jaeden and Tyler like to push people.
Sure.
They love it.
Yeah. I want to say this about running backs too, because I think you made a good point, LaShawn. I'll say this statistically, when you look at how successful Alabama's been, Tua Tagovailoa, fantastic quarterback, no doubt about it. But one thing that Tua and Bryce even somewhat struggled with was, and I'll say this about Mac Jones, this is probably one of the most the best things I appreciate about him was his ability to spread the ball all around. When you look at the fact that we had successful running game while also having amazing wide receivers, with Tua, we didn't. With Tua, we were a predominantly, passing team. We struggled. We didn't get even Najee Harris the ball as many times as he deserved. So having a guy like even Jam, to be able to run, and I'll say this about him too. He kind of reminds me of an old school Mark Ingram with the, I'm here to win mentality. And I think that that's kind of what we've lacked. So for me, I'm excited to see what he can do. I think, whether it's him or Haynes being able to have several wide receivers and running backs have the depth there could really be a big part of the Crimson Tide's success this year. Let's switch positions, though, switch sides of the ball. Let's talk about defense. Instead of breaking down every position, LaShawn, I'll start with you. Which position on defense are you most excited to see? And who are some guys that you're really looking to step up this year?
It's tough. That's tough. But I'm staying in the trenches because that's where I'm from. I would say give me the Wolf.
Sure.
Just because it's not a new position, but it's coached in a new way, and it's going to be presented in a way that we haven't seen. And the athletes we have that are at that position, quarterbacks in the SEC are going to be having absolute nightmare terrors from this position. And I think one of my other two or three maybe panel mates might be talking about the other position that's going to be keeping quarterbacks up at night, getting them up all early in the morning, seeing that crimson, scaring them.
Dan, what about you?
Yeah, Lucian and I talked about it before. It's that bandit position. Who's gonna emerge as the guy? Lucian. And I tend to agree. That it's just a matter of time before LT Overton, takes that position and runs with it. So I was looking at it. There's a lot of moving part, a lot of variables. But hey. I was going with Tim Smith, but Tim Smith is not a natural bandit. But LT Overton. I'm trying to see who's gonna take that. You got LT Overton, you got Keon Keeley, that switched the bandit. So that's gonna be a very intriguing position, going forward in fall camp.
All right, Petty, what about
Jordan
you?
Reynard too.
Oh yes.
I figured Lou would go with the defensive line, but I want, much like the wide receiver core, there's so much depth and then there's so much front end experience. I want to see how that works out and how that mixes together the new and young talent. And ultimately with five guys, who do we settle with on the field and what's that rotation look like? I know Moore's a given, but, cornerback and probably Damani at corner. But I think a lot of positions are up for battle with some of these young guys like Mincy and Bakwe, Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. flashed and A-Day. There's just so much young talent in that secondary. I want to see if that young talent pushes for serious playing time.
Well, they're going to have to, because I'm telling you right now, we cannot keep going the way we're going with our secondary getting beat out. Nothing is more frustrating than watching your secondary get beat 5-10 yards with a deep bomb. And I mean, when you're playing teams that we're going to be playing this year, that's not going to happen. You can't have that happen. One more position before we kind of dive deep into another topic. One of the things that I think we as Bama fans have, Lord willing, not taken for granted, but we somewhat taken for granted, is how successful we were with having an amazing kicker, right? I mean, I think that's been something that during my time at Alabama, we struggled with. I mean, I used to hyperventilate whenever we'd even go for an extra point because I'm like, we may not even make the thing. But to have so much success like we've had with Will Riker these, past 5 years, that was something I was concerned about. I mean, I know Connor Talty is a guy who has been learning from Riker and done a fantastic job, but to get the Lou Groza Award winner from Miami, Ohio, Graham Nicholson, I mean, to me, I was like, thank you, Lord, because that was an answer to prayer that I hadn't even prayed yet because, that's a fantastic spot. So very quickly before we move on to another topic, when you lose a guy like Riker and you get a guy like Nicholson, how much confidence does that kind of instill in your team that even if you have to go for a field goal, that you have a guy that can do it? Because, I mean, let's just be honest, that was going to be a major question mark to me or for me in the offseason is how are we going to capitalize on that opportunity? We'll start with you, Penny.
Look, it's one of the most important aspects of the game. You play all game for a game to come down to one kick. And so it's to have the confidence and you're bringing in the best in the country. It's immeasurable. You can't measure that type of, especially when you're taking a drop from a guy like Reichert, who's kind of been automatic for you. But man, my more thing, look, I hate to go off, but it just brings up the age old question for me. Why do all these small schools always have better damn kickers than like SEC programs? You'll be watching and your punter's kicking it damn 30 yards out of bounds. And then you turn on Maction and it's snowing and they got a dude that's pinning in the corner for like 80 yards every punt. And like you said, a field goal kicker that's winning the Lou Groza Award. I just always wonder why these small schools always seem to find the best dadgum kickers. It's always amazing to me, but no, the confidence to have a guy when the game's on the line, even that 35 yarder, when you got a guy that struggles to make extra points, you're like, oh hell. Sure. But there's a lot of games that come down to 35-yard field goals late in the fourth quarter that you won't some Mr. Automatic sitting there.
That's right. I mean, Alabama's endured years when, that's how we lost to LSU in 2011 in the regular season in Tuscaloosa, was missed field goals after field goal, after field goal, after field goal, and after field goal. And I was like, oh my word, I think Helen Keller could kick the ball in the end zone. All right, let's move on real quick. Dan, let's let you start on this one, recruiting. We're going to transition now to some big recruiting news. I'll say this. I think Kalen DeBoer has truly exceeded expectations, especially for me, for what he and his coaching staff has been able to do. I mean, we talked about this week after week, Dan. Coming in, keeping the guys in the locker room was a big feat. Bringing in some coaches who were head coaches, then now assistant coaches, getting these commits to stay committed to Alabama, and then getting some big-time commits, even winning them over Ohio State. I mean, Dan, what are some guys that we've had the last couple of weeks commit that you're excited for, and who are some more that we could see in the near future commit to Alabama in the future as well?
Oh, yeah. I didn't get to speak on it last week, but definitely I don't want this to go understated. Going into Ohio to get a kid that, out of Ohio State's backyard, that's no small feat. Justin Hill. Yep. I mean, you're getting like a hybrid Dallas Turner and Will Anderson in this kid. He has a straight line to the quarterback, and to compliment him, with Dawson Merritt, those were two tremendous wins at the Wolf position. Going forward, the first one we're going to look at is Saturday. We got Derek Meadows who's committing. Intel I'm hearing lately is LSU is down to Bama and LSU is coming on strong. He originally had his commitment date set for September. So interestingly enough, he changed it to a Saturday. It was announced that, he's going to be announced on Saturday. And LSU missing on Akylin Moore and other targets. They're going all in on Derek Meadows. It's this guy. They're selling the what was the LSU receiver at Brian Thomas role with him, So that's the thing they're selling. Come in, be wide receiver one, be that guy, be our Brian Thomas, so that's one I'm watching, and still the Mississippi kids are Akylin Dear, Caleb Cunningham, they haven't had any date set, but, I'm expecting them to announce it soon, within the next week or so.
Sure.
But another one is Ty Haywood. He's been very quiet on his end since his official visit to FSU, but I still like where Bama sits.
Lucia, I'm going to ask you the same question to add to this. When you look at, especially with the commits that we already have, I mean, even Keelan Russell getting that 5th star, I mean, what does this mean for Alabama in the future? And, looking at how well Kalen DeBoer has done so far, and any recruits that you think that Alabama could easily land here in the future, what are your thoughts? You're muted.
You got to give it to Kalen DeBoer. He's done something that a whole lot of people, and that includes most of our fan base, didn't think was going to be possible. And he's not done.
That's right.
He's far from it. He's just getting started. So I see us getting a steal. When I say steal, I think we're going to break a heart coming in August in recruiting. And that's what I'm going to call. That's my deep 3-pointer. But I'm almost positive it's going to happen because, I mean, just look at what he did this last year in the draft with his 3 wide receivers. He put 9 players in the draft. I mean, it's like, why wouldn't you want to go play at Alabama? Look at the energy. Just look at the environment. Look at your facilities. Look at who and where you're going to get to play every night. Every time we play, we're on TV.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You want to get to the next level. We got a whole entire wall. I saw it myself. The whole entire wall of the NFL. So it's pretty much. I mean, it's gonna be fun. So Bama fans, we ain't done. That's
right. Ain't done. All right, Petty, very quickly before we move on to our next topic, recruiting, who are you excited for, and, the job's done so far?
Well, I mean, the first knock was he's not going to be able to recruit in the South. Well, we've got 4 or 5 stars already lined up in a bevy of 4 stars. But then he's an offensive mind. You're going to be able to recruit defensive guys in the SEC. And it's every week you turn the page, he's signing a 4-star linebacker. He goes up into Ohio State, gets a 4-star, goes into Georgia, gets a 4-star linebacker, 5-star cornerbacks out of California. I mean, he's just bringing in defensive player after defensive player to build off the talent that's already on this roster. So he's already debunked 2 huge theories. And man, he's doing it. You were asking earlier about what keeps Ryan Williams around. Well, one, it's a system where you see, hey, I might not play this year, but there's 3 or 4 guys getting involved that are about to be gone next year that we're going to be spreading it to 3 new dudes. But Courtney Morgan is able to preach an old school philosophy to these kids, and it's getting through. And that's the secret of you got to earn your keep. You don't just walk in and get the highest NIL as a freshman, regardless of your stars. You got to come in here and prove it. And these kids are really buying into the way Courtney sells that. And it's just like Lushan said, buckle up, man, because not just can he not recruit, he can recruit defense. He can recruit it all. He's building on to a powder keg that was already there.
I agree. I mean, if you're not a Bama fan, I mean, I think that's the best part about this whole thing is that non-Bama fans are like, praise the Lord, Nick Saban's gone, Alabama's done. And then we get Kalen DeBoer and they're like, well, crap, the dynasty is nowhere near dead and it's well alive. So, all right, moving on real quick. Before we move on to the next topic, I want to give a shout out to Title Towel. Love them. I don't know if y'all have one. You can go to whitwellsports.com. On this show, we also like to call them Raggedy Rags. Because we're going to have some made for Auburn fans that they can just, wipe their little tears each and every year. And, it's really good investment you're an Auburn fan because you don't have to keep buying toilet paper, although you haven't been winning much, so there's no reason to roll trees. But all that to say, if you do not have your Title Towel yet, you need to get one. I keep doing this because that's like the size, and you throw it up in the air, and that's why I keep making the shape. But WillWillSports.com, they're amazing. Love them. And they actually, I've known them since I was UA sign girl in college, Alabama. So fantastic people, love them, and thank them so much for their support of the Bama Center Network. Now, moving on, we're going to still talk football for a few more minutes before we move on to basketball and other sports because, Alabama is good at other sports than just football. But want to say this as well. Go ahead, Lushawn.
What?
I'll just saw your private chat. I was going to let you do that if you wanted to.
No,
you're good. All right, moving on to a little bit more football. Obviously, if you do not follow Andy Staples, and I'll say this about Andy, he and I go back way back because when I was that was years ago. It was when Lane Kiffin was still the OC. Oh, let's see. All right, I think we have a super chat. I think it's Quante Plummer. Did I butcher that? Quante. Maybe it's Quante. I think people give Morgan too much credit. He has a 3-star king at Washington. If you ask me, Saban is helping them get players. You know what? If you're making $500,000 a year, you're definitely still helping get players. All right, moving on. Bluebloods. If you don't know Andy Staples, what I was going to say is I asked Nick Saban years ago, how has Lane Kiffin improved you as a coach? Right? And at first, it was like, oh. And actually, it was really funny because Nick Saban said, huh? Because he definitely wasn't expecting that. And Andy Staples wrote an article bashing me and my question. And then he had to write another article, actually, in so many words, apologizing, because once he went back and listened to the audio about it and actually read what Nick Saban stated and responded with, he was like, that actually was a really good question because it talked about why Nick Saban brought Lane Kiffin in. And like I said, Lane Kiffin doesn't get enough credit for all he helped Alabama do. And Nick Saban admitted that Lane Kiffin actually restored a program and kind of helped him not become a Les Miles 2.0 and get let go because he wasn't willing to adapt and evolve with the way football was going. Because we went from pro style to having a dual threat quarterback. He helped bring in guys like, Blake Barnett, Jalen Hurts, all that to say. Andy Staples has once again made the news for an article that he wrote about some blue blood programs. And the reason we're talking about this is not because there's a team that's not on there that should be on there, but because there are a few programs who are on Andy Staples's college football blue bloods list that should not be. So if you've not checked it out, there are some teams on there. I'm going to name them real quick. Alabama, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Michigan, Georgia, Notre Dame, Texas, I almost said South Carolina, USC, Southern California, and Penn State. Petty, going to start with you on this. You and I kind of bantered a little bit about this before the show started, but this list, a few programs who, let's just be honest, should not be on there and why.
I didn't see the list. Did you say Georgia were they on it?
Yes, Georgia is on there, and that's why there's so much controversy because
there should be because they shouldn't be on the list. Exactly. They're not a blue blood. For all we know, they're Clemson. They're just a flash in the pan. So I hey, are they a national power right now? Abso-freaking-lutely. Have they been the most dominant program in regular season the last 3 years? Absolutely. Does Bama still have their number? Abso-freaking-lutely. Look, they've done it for a couple years. Great. The Blue Bloods are programs that have been around since before we were doing it. When Bear Bryant was doing it, when, the greatest coach in my favorite program's lifetime doesn't even get them on the list. To be a Blue Blood, you've had to do this for the entirety of your program. And with that said, I think what you were kind of alluding to, Hannah, is there's a few programs on that list that should lose Blue Blood status based off the fact that our kids don't know that they've been worth a crap. Penn State, Nebraska, Michigan.
Nebraska actually not on the list. Yeah.
That's where I stand on that. No, Blue Bloods, I don't think a run over a couple years gets you on it, but I do think a 30-year drought should get your butt taken off of it.
No, I agree. And I think with Michigan, and this is the thing. You have to give credit where it's due because Alabama had a long streak where we went. The year I was born, 92, with Gene Stallings, right? We won a national championship. It wasn't until I was graduating high school that we won another one, right? Nick Saban could have simply won one in 2009 and probably gone 6, 7, 8 years and not won another one. And Bama fans at that time would have been like, oh, okay, we won a national championship. He didn't do that. He won, and then he won back-to-back, and then he won some more, and then some more, and then some more, and some more, some more, right? So when you look at that versus a Michigan situation who finally wins a national championship, right? And then he vanishes. Harbaugh's like, peace out, I mean, there's a difference. Like, is Michigan going to continue to be a dominant team? Probably not, I mean, who knows? But when you look at a fact that Georgia has come out of the woodworks after all these years, and now all of a sudden they're on the Blueblood program. That's not what a Blueblood is. So, Dan, your opinion as well. Obviously, Petty made some great statements, and then we'll go to Lushan. Dan, what are your thoughts on these lists? And is there anyone also that's not on the list that should be?
Well, if you're going to have Georgia on the list, why wouldn't you have Clemson on the list? That's my biggest question.
Sure.
Recency bias, I guess. But, but if it's recency bias, why is Penn State on the list?
Sure.
So that's one I don't understand. I like to question Mr. Staples on that. But these are the teams that I would say he had on the bubble. He had FSU, LSU, Clemson, Nebraska, Miami. You can take Georgia. I'll put Miami there. You got Florida, same thing. Auburn. Oh well, whatever.
Sure.
Tennessee and Oregon.
Yep.
I don't understand why Oregon would be considered a contender for blue blood status. They haven't done anything yet.
I mean, I don't really think it's fair to put Georgia on there and not put Clemson on there. I know that Georgia's won 3, but I mean, you look at Dabo Swinney gave Nick Saban a run for his money, and that was kind of the my word, we're having to watch this national championship again. How many rematches do we have to have? I mean, Dabo Swinney gave Nick Saban a run, not only for national championship, but in recruiting. So if any program was kind of at that level at that point, it would have been Clemson. So I think Andy Staples did a disservice. Lushan, what are your thoughts?
I think that this list means absolutely nothing.
Yep.
In the scheme of football. I think people that are getting up in a tizzy about it need to check themselves and realize that there's 51 days till football, and we're going to see who's actually should be on this blue blood list. Because, in my opinion, I'm taking a lot of teams off this list, and that's the contenders too. Because the blue blood, I mean, that's not really football anymore. Like the changing of the times, you got to change with the times. Blue blood doesn't really mean what it used to anymore.
Sure, man.
So, to me, is Georgia a blue blood? Some people might think that. Do I think that? They're one of the top teams in college football. So by that definition, yeah, they are a blue blood. But if you want to go by the historical definition and live in the past like a whole bunch of fossils want to, and live with your championships, then no, they're not. But if you want to be a progressive fan and a progressive person and actually learn more about the game, you have to learn and adapt and get better. And getting better is part of being a blue blood. So if your team's not getting better, Penn State, you're not up there. Nebraska, no. Miami, these teams ain't won in decades. So no, the blue blood thing is irrelevant in this day and age in college football.
Well, by that merit, Ole Miss just beat Penn State in the Peach Bowl. So
right. And NIL made blue bloods irrelevant.
Yes, agreed with that.
All right, moving on to another sport, because we just spent 45 minutes talking about Alabama football, which is great. I mean, let's just be honest, it's amazing to talk about. But there is another sport that is trying to make its name, and that is Alabama basketball. And I'll say this about Nate Oates. He has done a fantastic job. I mean, when you look at how we had to go through Anthony Grant and then Avery Johnson to finally find our Nate Oates, I mean, it's worth it all, right? So you look at the fact that we're finally at the the cusp of winning a national championship. I mean, so close last year, so close, so frustrating that we didn't win, but they exceeded a lot of expectations, even mine. I never really thought we would have that good of a run in the NCAA tournament. But when you look at the fact that some of the most crucial players on last year's successful team is coming back for another year, plus some other transfers and some other, commits that we've gotten. Dan, let's start with you, because my favorite part about you during basketball season was your crooked neck. So Lord willing, we'll have a lot of crooked necks because you'll be watching that game during the show. How excited are you for this team? Let's kind of talk about maybe some guys. I mean, obviously you have Grant Nelson, you have Mark Sears, who are no-brainers for starters, but some other guys that, you're excited to watch this year. And do you think this team can win it all this year?
Win it all. I expect this team to kick down the door and be cutting down the nets, the final nets at the end of the season. But I'm going to tell you why. I was excited already, for this team. But, man, until a few days ago, man, someone released Chris Youngblood's highlight. And when I saw that, man, I called my brother Chris. I called him immediately. I said, man, listen, we're going to win. This team is going to run away with it. If we can utilize this guy, I don't know how Nate Oates tends to find these guys, man, but wow. I mean, this guy really been hitting it with the transfers, and this Chris Youngblood, he's a different kind of body type. He's the length that we've been wanting on the perimeter, the guard, be able to handle the physicality of the SEC. And, his mid-range game, which Nate Oates hates, we're going to have to utilize it. We're going to have to find a way to utilize it. This kid is 6'4", 6'5", 200 plus, I mean, he could be a monster on the block when you get a little mismatch. You need to get a quick bucket. He's your go-to guy. Him and Grant Nelson at the elbow, I would love to see that. Get those guys going downhill against a little smaller player. I think it would be unstoppable. But, man, as far as the other two stars, we got Sears, Nelson, and Youngblood. I like getting Oki, the big center. And Big Cliff, and it's that fifth one. I don't know. Is it going to be right sale again? Do we want to go small ball again, or could it be we slide Grant Nelson up to the 3, use Jaron Stevenson? I don't know. It's so many options, but I think we have 8 guys that are starter caliber right now,
sure,
which is a good thing to have, and I expect that's really steamroll the competition. 33 wins minimum.
Yeah. All right, Petty, what are your thoughts?
Look, we made it to the Final Four and didn't expect it. But what were the keys to the 2 programs that played for the national title that Alabama didn't have? Size. They had 2 7-footers on each team that were athletic and could dominate a game. And that's what we didn't have in the low post. And that's where, look, man, it's just we went as far as we could. And give Oates credit. He recognizes it. You bring in a 7-foot freshman, and then you bring in Big Cliff with the experience. And on a team that made it to the Final Four, all you did was add the 2 pieces that won 2 other programs, or had 2 programs playing for that national title. One won a national title in UConn. And then you add, like you said, the depth behind Sears. I mean, Reitzel, Youngblood. I mean, Reed is a 5-star. He's just – like Dan said, we're running 8. You're going to rotation of 8 and possibly 10 with even Philon and Holloway. It's just, God, man, it's there's guys in the front court, and then you got some hogs down low. It's exciting as hell. I've said it on our other show several times. Look, college football, there's nothing bigger in the South. But as far as my college experience, some of my favorite nights were those Wednesday nights in Coleman Coliseum, those Saturday mornings, watching Red Shoes Petway break Florida's heart with a last second finger roll. So I get really pumped up about basketball, and the fact that you're taking a Final Four program and adding those weapons, man, sign me up. Absolutely.
And Lushan, before we move on, and Jimmy, don't worry, we're going to get the softball.
Jimmy wants that softball.
Jimmy wants that softball. Well, listen, if you get me on a show, you're going to be talking that softball. Just let us finish this conversation. We'll move on. All right, Lushan, your thoughts on this team, bringing Sears back, Reitzel back, Nelson back, and some of the new guys that we can see this year playing.
I think it's Nate Oates. I think people need to actually realize how methodical this man has been in choosing who he wanted to transfer into the program.
Right.
He's methodical with his game planning. And now that he has all the pieces on the chessboard, he's going to do something that we've never seen at Alabama before. And I think that the Crimson Tide might host something that's never been done in college sports, and that's having multiple national championships. And I'm not just talking in just basketball and football. I think in a lot of other sports, we're in prime position to dominate all year. So 2025 might be a great year for us, guys.
Yeah. Outstanding job by Greg Byrne. Outstanding.
Absolutely. No doubt.
All right, Jimmy, your wish is granted. We're going to talk about softball to start. And I'll say this. I don't actually, Lucian or Petty, I don't know if you'll know my take on softball, but I have not been happy with how things have been playing out, okay? Because I'll just say this now. I understand that you're like, oh, well, we've made it to the Women's Cross World Series. Okay, you tell me that, Kalen DeBoer lets his team make it to the college football playoff and we don't win another national championship in 10 years, more than that, we'd be happy? Absolutely not. And also, if Nate Oates doesn't get his team back to the Final Four in the next 3 or 4 years, he's gone too. So apparently the only team that we can be just complacent at is softball. But you know what? It's not working for me. I'm telling you this right now. Patrick Murphy's on the hot seat. I know they're like, oh, who's going to replace him? Someone's going to have to if the man can't get a hitting coach. The man can't get power hitters. You know what? Let's just say this too. One of the biggest things we've seen in football is we have to get coaches who can develop players. Okay. Alabama softball does not have the coaches to develop these players. You look at the fact that Skylar Wallace left Alabama, went to Florida, almost won a national championship if we're just saying, well, they made it too, and we just lost our best player again to go to Florida. So we do a great job recruiting for Duncan and the Florida Gators because all of our good players are like, peace out, not getting developed, not winning championships. We're going to just move on. So all of that to say, yay, Alabama got another recruit, okay? Does Salyn Hawkins have the opportunity to be a great player for Alabama from Mississippi State? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean a dang thing if she can't hit the ball out of the park. So until Patrick Murphy okay, let me say this too. Having a graduate assistant who is already part of a program become the hitting coach is not actually getting a hitting coach, okay? That's just moving someone up saying, all right, I don't really want to find someone, so here you go, all right? That's fine. But we're Alabama, and I'm no longer going to sit back and just pretend like all things are fine. So I'm sorry for my little rant. But yes, Alabama got Salyn Hawkins, transfer from Mississippi State. Alabama's never struggled defensively, okay? Like Alabama's not historically a team that struggles with pitching, not a team that struggles with, we have great outfielders. No. Yeah, Caleb, we have players, whether we have to get 1 year players each and every year of pitching, I don't really care what we do, it works. But hitting the ball, and I'll say this too, I'm not against power hitting, okay, or slap hitting. I'm not, because when we won a national championship in 2012 with my dear friend Jackie Traina at the helm, okay, we had Caleb Rowe and Cassie Riley-Boscia who were back-to-back slap hitters, okay? They would get on base, first, second base, but we had Jackie Traina, Amanda Locke, Courtney Conley, and Kayla Hunt, who were power hitters that would bring them in. So usually by the end of the first inning, we had 3 or 4 runs on the board. So when you have a team who does great defense does not win games in softball. Can it help you win a game? Yes, but it ain't golf. It ain't the lowest score wins, okay? You have to actually score points. So all of that to say, I'm going to shut up now. And I'll let Dan talk about softball for a second before we move on to baseball and some other sports. But yes, that was my rant for the day. So yes, Tennessee did have some hitters because they have a hitting coach. Go ahead, Dan.
All right. That's it. But the thing is, and we'll discuss it with Greg Byrne at the next town hall is
follow me and buy yeah.
Is what are we going to allocate, to remain at the top of the SEC? Because look, we got Texas and Oklahoma, the 2 teams that played for the national championship. They're coming to the SEC.
They're coming actually to Tuscaloosa
And, you know, this is our conference. You know,
Yep.
we're Bama. You know, we're the championship school.
That's right.
We're the team that everybody has circled on the schedule. You know, so how much resources are we going to allocate to make sure that we maintain our level of dominance in the SEC?
Yeah.
And that's a question we got to seriously ponder. You know, if we want to remain competitive in the SEC, we got to do what we got to do, and that's get some hitters and get the hitting coach.
Yeah.
We got to develop. You know, we got to. You know, Nick Saban had 30 plus staff. You know, guys on the staff. You know, off field assistant. You know, so let's do something to to develop Petty, our hitters in Tuscaloosa.
And Betty, before I pitch it to you and then Lucian, I want to add this too. Caleb Rowe, I'm very excited she's part of this program. I'm very excited for what she can bring. I want to go ahead and say that. I also want to say that I know the conversation's like, well, who would replace Patrick Murphy? I'll give you one name, Molly Fickner. Okay. She played Alabama. She's currently a head coach for University of Louisiana. Okay. The Raging Cajuns. They've done a fantastic job so far. I mean, she's not able to recruit the type of players that Alabama and Tennessee and all that, but she's young. She has grit and players love her. Okay. The thing I want to also say is that when you look at Texas and Oklahoma, who just played for the national championship, okay, they're both coming to the SEC. Mm-hmm. So what you also need to know is that when you have players at Alabama that want to stay in the SEC, but also win, we're going to lose even more players because right now it's just Florida. Not really Tennessee. Florida's really the team in the SEC who's getting our players, our star players. But now we're going to be competing with Tennessee and Texas and Florida and Oklahoma to keep our players in the SEC. Petty, what are your thoughts on softball before we a couple more things and wrap it up?
You just don't realize how much you spoke to my soul, Hannah, actually. And it's a man, Alabama's in a weird situation. And for those that know me the deepest and have been on the other show, and a lot of the guys in this, that Jimmy Clay and guys know that I'm also an Ole Miss fan, huge Ole Miss fan. And you literally could have taken everything you just said and taken the Alabama softball out and added Mike Bianco and Ole Miss baseball. But you're in this vicarious situation where I was at Alabama when it became what it was in softball back in the early 2000s, when it became the power under Murphy. Well, in the same way, Ole Miss baseball was never anything, and Bianco takes it over. And the next thing you know, you're going to super regionals and you make Omaha. But for some reason, you keep coming up short. And then finally, he won the College World Series a couple years ago, but you made a huge point.
Yeah.
At that point, you almost handcuff the university with what you've built because they now can't let the legend that built the program go. It's a very tough situation because what does that look like to the public when you fire the legend that made your program what it is? Well, the sad fact is, and we talked about this about Nick Saban last night on our show, it wasn't that DeBoer was a step up from Saban. In a blink of an eye, the game changed. And games change. And if you don't evolve with it, if you don't bring in Lane Kiffin, if you don't go from the wishbone to the power eye, if you don't evolve with any sport that you're in, regardless of sport, it don't matter if it's softball, it don't matter if it's baseball, it don't matter if it's football, they all evolve. You've got to add pitching coaches. Like the track man and all the hitting analytics are so much different from even when I played. I couldn't go out. I played college baseball at Shelton State. I couldn't go out and coach baseball right now with the advancement of analytics. I would look like a fool. Like I'd never coached T-ball. And so, no, look, you got to love your legends, but there's also a time that if they're not evolving with the game, they're not bigger than the program.
That's right. And, people would argue that Patrick Murphy, and I'll say this too, I'm not discounting or denying that he has not done a fantastic job for the Alabama softball program. But even Nick Saban himself said that he knew that there was a point where he had to step away. And, you look at what happened with our DBs the last couple of years and how they played, maybe he lost that, and we saw that on the sidelines. Everyone knows that Nick Saban was getting softer, right? They saw no more butt slaps, and we realized that Nick Saban didn't go through 175 pairs of headphones every single year, right? But even Nick Saban knew that at some point he was going to be done. And I'm not saying that Patrick Murphy's there, but I'm also saying that he has easy decisions he could make to not have to be there. If he would simply get a hitting coach and he would recruit a different style of player, then we would not even be having this conversation. But I'll say this before I move on to Lushan about the same conversation. Even Nate Oates, when the thing is this, everyone wants to win a national championship. Okay. Every sport, every team, and every fan, the whole goal is national championship. But once you prove you can do it, you got to do it again. Okay. Once you've kind of shown fans that you have what it takes as a coach to lead a team there, the expectation is going to be we'll do it again. And for whatever reason, it's been 12 years since we've made it to the, and I'll say this too, it's another thing to just make it to the Women's Lacrosse World Series. Okay. It's another thing when we always lose the first game and we're surviving in the loser's bracket, okay? Like when you're constantly having to win elimination games, that's not, oh, yeah, we're in the Women's Lacrosse World Series. That's, oh, well, we're trying to stay alive and not lose in the first round, right? So, Lushan, don't know how big of an Alabama softball fan you are. Clearly, I'm not one at all. I'm just kidding. But, what are your thoughts? And, we'll transition this to baseball in a second because obviously they've got some stuff going on. And then I saw a comment from Ephraim. Don't worry, I've got some Alabama women's basketball coming as well. But what are your thoughts on the softball program right now and what needs to change?
I am not familiar with the softball program other than what I took in when I was at the Bryant-Denny Museum in the softball display. But obviously, with what I said about the football team and the basketball team, it applies to every other sport. If you're not willing to move on and get better, then stay in the past, but you're going to get moved on from. So if you're not getting better, get off the bus because the train of Alabama is going to keep on rolling regardless of who's at the helm.
That's right. And we lived on the J train in 2012, and we've been derailed ever since. So, all right, moving on from softball, let's talk about women's basketball because I don't know if, anyone is really aware of what's actually happened in the Alabama women's basketball world. But I'm excited because we actually got an amazing recruit, okay? We just got a commitment from Tiana Chambers, who's one of the best women's basketball players from the state of Colorado. And guess this, she picked Alabama over Mississippi State. And if you watch women's basketball, Mississippi State's kind of been the team to win and win and win and win and win. So I am super pumped. And I think we're at a point where women's basketball can actually be really competitive because last year we had, especially with Hannah Barker, we had some close games to where we could have easily, beaten Auburn on the road. We were really close against South Carolina. I mean, we've become a team in the SEC that's not at the bottom anymore. We're kind of at that bubble. And for me, getting a recruit like this shows what we're capable of doing and that we actually have a positive trajectory for this program. So for me, I'm excited about this. This is really, when you get a 4-star, this is the equivalent. Let me just get an analogy. This is like the equivalent of like when Nick Saban got his first 5-star recruit. People are like, wait, what? Eyes are on Alabama. Because when Nick Saban came, there was some excitement about the program. But when he started getting some really big name recruits, you're like, what's happening? And I think this is what's happening with Alabama women's basketball is that recruits are seeing what's happening to this team. And they're like, you know what? They only need 1 or 2 really good players to make this team a championship caliber team. So Dan, starting with you, don't know if y'all are women's basketball fans either, but your thoughts on this and how big of a pickup is this for the Alabama women's basketball program? And Christy Curry.
Yeah. Huge pickup because we was having the same discussion I think over about a year ago with Christy Curry as we were having with Pat Murphy. Hey, is it time? Has it been long enough? It seems like Christy Curry is making that turn, taking it to another level. And then recently in this past month that they started putting out the women's basketball rankings, right? The high school rankings. Yeah. So, I thought that was big. But, yeah, Bama is really trending up. I like the way we're going with the basketball. I saw someone talk about, let's build that arena. The arena is actually for us fans.
That's right.
They're breaking ground, supposed to be breaking ground on new basketball complex, the team complex. So that's pretty good, you know. But the arena, one that clamoring for a new arena, that's just for the fans. That's just for us fans.
That's right.
But you know, as long as we get us a basketball facility for the players, something we can bring guys in and show recruits, you know, hey, you know, Bama basketball is here to stay.
Yeah.
You know, so
exactly.
You know, we were going to be a championship school. We got to find the perfect formula to be able to allocate resources across all sports.
Yeah.
You know,
for sure.
If we want to be the prime school, you know, be the IMG of college sports.
That's
you know,
right.
I think, you know, we're most prime to be that. But yeah, huge pickup, and I saw that. But I think she was ranked was top 20 in the country. Yeah, that's you know,
it's a big deal.
Yeah, a women's basketball player, you know, that high. That's not common in Tuscaloosa, and so we're trending in the right direction. And I like the way we're going, and I hats off to Coach Curry and the job that she's been doing lately.
Absolutely, Dan. And the fact that we're no longer having to live in the NIT, even in women's basketball, making it, winning in the first round of the NCAA women's tournament, beating 9th ranked FSU was a big deal. Obviously, lost to number 1 Texas. But I want to say this. I don't know if people realize how close of a game it was. 65-54. Right. Okay. Texas had been slaughtering teams all season. That was one of the toughest games. Even Texas said that was one of the toughest games they played all year was against Alabama. Petty and then Lushan, thoughts on this pickup and, you know, this program that Christy Curry. And I'll say this too. I'm really glad we haven't given up on her. But I'll say the difference for the haters that want to compare this to Patrick Murphy. Patrick Murphy has won a national championship. Christy Curry showing that she is capable. If she was to win one, I guarantee you she wouldn't have 12 years to try to win another one. But I digress. Go ahead, Petty. What are your thoughts?
That's one of the beautiful things about basketball is it doesn't take many, you know, it's not like football where you're building out 85-man roster, or baseball and softball where you've got 25 folks on the team. I think it was softball there. Are they 25 or is that what y'all's roster size was?
Yeah.
Again, and where you're splitting scholarships. I mean, you've got 5 folks on the floor, and if you have 2 or 3 game changers and a few pieces to work off of, and again, you're talking about a team that's coming off an NCAA tournament berth and gave a run to a number 1 seed. You bring in a top 20 player. I mean, look, man, there's no secret. Look what Caitlin Clark did for Iowa. That's one player. You bring in one girl that can stroke
the WNBA as well.
Yeah, one girl that can get it done. Like that's a game changer, and it's the same for men's basketball. Anytime you bring in that McDonald's All-American, that's a game changer on programs. So,
sure. All right, Lushan, before we wrap up the show, what are your thoughts?
You know, I think one of the most important things, and this goes for everything, you got to be able to recruit, and you got to be able to develop. So if you're not doing those 2 things, you can't really have a high expectation, and not having a high expectation is not what we do at the University of Alabama. So those are 2 problems that need to get corrected, and I think if they do, we'll be in a good shape to make it not just a deep tournament run. We'll make some noise in the SEC.
That's right. All right, Jimmy, we're going to have to wrap up. I wasn't going to even mention soccer because I know we have a lot going on, but I will say this, women's soccer, super impressed with how well this program's done the last couple of years. I know they've got some, and Jimmy, let me just say this. I'm going to save my exciting thoughts about soccer for next week. I promise I will make sure we have some, you know, and I don't even care if we do 5 minutes of women's sports because I can talk about it. But I was going to mention soccer and I was going to mention rowing, but I didn't have time because we need to wrap the show up. But Jimmy, come back next week. I promise you we'll break down some soccer and talk about their exciting schedule and also some exciting recruits they picked up.
I got a soccer question. When did Staley leave? Is he still there? Is he still the coach?
Yeah, I thought so. Did he leave?
Oh, my bad. I don't know. He was my favorite coach at Alabama when I worked.
No, hold on.
I didn't think he was there anymore.
It's Wes Hart. No, yeah, Wes Hart.
Okay, I didn't think Staley was there anymore. He was my favorite.
I was like, wait. I thought he had left a while ago. Yeah, it was right after I graduated. That's why I was like, wait, what? I thought maybe he came back. All right, well, you know it's time to wrap up the show when dumb nuts start commenting, and they're here. Chris Williams. Oh, you know what, Chris? Okay, can everyone clap? Just clap for a second. All of y'all clap. All of you clap. Petty, Lushan, clap. Because Chris Williams finally changed his profile picture. So we can all rejoice. At least there's been a little growth in that man's heart since, the last couple of weeks. But before we jump off, I just want to say thank you again to our sponsors. Really appreciate Workspace Solutions. Really appreciate Title Towel for all that they do. And I don't want to forget that we have another exciting show. No Teagues Take tonight, but on Saturday we have Saturday Nights Talking Bama with JT, Josh Tucker, and JB. Saturday night here on the Bama Center at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. And let's see, Bama Killer, which is one of Chris Williams' others profiles, says, if you ever visit Ohio State, you'll understand why so many Alabama players ran from Alabama first chance they got. Well, buddy, let me tell you this.
Who? That's what I want to know, Lucy.
Well, you know what? Let's just be honest. Your coach, I say this all the time, he needs some Tender Tush lotion on his behind because he's always on the hot seat because y'all can't beat Michigan. I mean, Ryan Day literally can't ever beat Michigan to save his life. Let's see.
Who you talking about? Zion Grady.
Who are you talking about?
They don't. They're just raggedy. They're loco. Like they would qualify in a mental institute to be psycho.
Y'all didn't think Jamison Williams was good. He came up and put up 1,700 yards when he came at Bama.
I mean,
and now you wonder why Alabama's talking about using white helmets is because they're trying to be like Big Brother. Chris, I mean, let's just, you know what? Just I ain't got time for
Big Brother. Big Brother. You guys need to worry about keeping power on and all those massage parlors. You guys
wear white helmets. Yeah, wear white helmets because we're scared Hugh Freeze might pull a massage parlor execution on game day and mess up them pretty Crimson helmets.
I mean,
right.
Let's see.
There's a reason Auburn always has the white uniforms.
I agree.
Why
know that?
They should fire Ryan Day if he doesn't beat Michigan. All right, I'm gonna tell you what right now.
And bunk.
All right. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up before I lose I need to actually get to church if I need to do any change, go to church, and thank the good Lord that my parents raised me to be an Alabama fan and not an Auburn fan. So anyway, thank y'all so much, Lushan and Petty, for joining the show tonight. Y'all are welcome on here anytime, especially talking football because I love that. And Dan, as always, glad you're a part of the show. I'm honored to be a part of the show, and we missed you last week, so glad to have us back. And I'll say this, Lord willing, C'Chi will be here next week, so it'll be the three amigos back and ready to rock and roll, I think. Oh, go ahead, Lushan. You want to say something?
Man, Auburn. So I think it'll be, if you want to call somebody Big Brother, you need to put more than 4,000 people at one of your games.
That's right.
You need to win some big games. You need to not lose to people that don't even play in conferences that are respectable in the 12-team playoff.
Hey, you shut your mouth talking about New Mexico State and that powerhouse.
You know what? I forgot. They are one of the most up-and-coming, scariest programs in college football.
Look,
I hear they might make a run.
There was a PF Pro rating that showed that Maryland, with their backup quarterback, was the most dangerous offense in all of college football last year.
Oh, I know.
It wasn't just that they scored 70 on Auburn. They were really that good at football.
Yep.
I mean, Auburn has always been the apex of absolute trash. And you guys keep furthering that definition. So if I ever want to be a war eagle, but then be called the Auburn Tigers, which still don't make no damn sense to me. It's just, if I want to go out and walk around with cows and just look at trees and play with toilet paper,
right,
and then go to Asian places at night, and maybe hang out and play Marco Polo with Hugh Freeze while I'm there, I'll go to Auburn. But if I want to do anything else, I'll go to Bama.
Hey, Chris, you take notes, you can make pictures, you can draw in a coloring book, you can write it down. We don't give a fuck. Alabama's still going to beat that ass.
All right.
Do whatever you want, all the receipts you want. You can get a whole bucket list of receipts and they can flow over, you big jackass. He's still going to get your ass kicked.
All right. Well, I think Chris Williams is going to be missing on this show next week.
No, he'll be back.
Oh, no. He's been gone a couple of weeks. I think I heard his feelings a couple of weeks ago. I actually was really worried that I had,
I have a question, though.
Go ahead.
I really want to know, maybe Lou or Petty, maybe y'all know. How much is Hugh Freeze's buyout? Do y'all know? I don't know.
I had it up earlier. Hold on.
I think it's the same thing, the same cost as it is to open a massage parlor. So whatever, you look that up and you'll get your same.
How much is it? How much is it to import that fancy lotion?
It's
that
$5
they
million.
import from France?
Wow. Oh, okay. Well, that's chump change compared to what they still paying.
I'll tell you right now. Texas may have a lot of old money, but Auburn's got a lot of money because they've spent more money on having to get rid of coaches. And I'll be honest, I don't know how they got the money for another jumbotron.
I'm just trying to figure out. I'm just trying to figure out how I can go to Auburn.
They just pay money to see their team stuck on a big screen.
I need that money in my life.
Yeah.
I need to go.
We could.
Auburn,
we could probably raise $5 million.
Listen,
you know what?
Being an Auburn coach is anyone's dream because you're gonna suck regardless. No one wants to go there and play for you, so you're getting paid not to coach.
When the best thing is your band, you should just effing quit. Like we should go to the European Soccer League where they have relegation and just relegate Auburn's ass onto the Sun Belt.
I told them.
I really think they should get kicked out. They're not in this. If you got New Mexico State, bro, like I didn't even know that was a football team. I know a lot about football, and I didn't know that was a university that could come in and not just beat you, embarrass you.
Dominate.
They couldn't have gone in Nashville and beat Vanderbilt. But
Auburn was so bad, the dead Indian spirits under them stadium couldn't even pull them out a win last year.
Well, they're only going to win 4 games this year. So anyway, all right. Well, I got to go because I have to be up at the crack of dawn for day 2. And if y'all want to know why I'm so red, I am in firefighter recruit school. And I am wore plumb out. So I am literally about to go get Epsom salt soap, go drink a gallon of water, take a Tylenol or 2, and go to bed. So all that to say, thank y'all again, Petty Lucian, for being on today. I'm just going to call you Lou from now on, if that's okay. Like the Lou. All right. Lululemon. I'm just kidding. All right. So Petty, Lou, thank y'all for being on. Dan, as always, appreciate you. And Justin, thank you for all you do because let's be honest, you keep us in line and keep the show running. Without you, this is not possible. So from all of us here at the Crimson Dynasty and the Final Whistle and part of the Bama Center Network, we love y'all, appreciate y'all, and we'll be back next week. Bye, guys. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Roll Tide.